Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Naruto Prologue Land of Waves Arc, Episode 6, A Dangerous Mission, Journey to the Land of Waves. The episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So the episode begins with the team on a D rank mission to catch Tora, who is an escaped pet cat, and they do manage to capture Tora, and when they return to the Hokage to basically give in the report of a completed mission, he starts to go through other D rank missions that they could potentially get when Naruto basically proclaims that he is ready for more difficult missions and he doesn't want to do what essentially amounts to chores anymore. And this is when the Hokage gives him a lecture on how the missions are divided and why they are divided that way, and the differences in shinobi rankings and which level of shinobi get which level of missions, etc. But Naruto doesn't really listen and basically tells the Hokage that he's not the prankster he used to be and he is ready for a more exciting and dangerous mission. And so, in a moment of indulgence towards Naruto, the Hokage then decides to give them a C rank mission, which is an escort mission to escort the bridge builder Tazuna from the Hidden Leaf all the way over to the Land of Waves and then guard him while he finishes building his bridge that he has designed. And then they leave Konoha for the first time. And as they are leaving, they encounter a couple of enemy shinobi who are the Demon Brothers, and they attack. Kakashi basically fakes his death using a substitution, which leaves Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto to defend Tazuna. Sakura is able to move. Sasuke makes a very good showing and actually is able to incapacitate the Demon Brothers by using the chain attack. Like they use a chain to attack Kakashi, and then he uses that chain against them by basically pinning it to a tree, which incapacitates him, but unfortunately Naruto is the only one who freezes up, unable to handle the pressure and able to move, and he ends up cut by a poison gauntlet, which then Kakashi reveals himself, fully defeats the Demon Brothers, and says that the reason he faked his death and left it to the kids is he needed to confirm who the target was, which turns out to be Tazuna, meaning that the mission was misranked, because if there was enemy shinobi involved, it should have been higher than a C rank. And then they basically, because Naruto couldn't move, Kakashi apologizes to him because he didn't expect that he couldn't move, and this, of course, is devastating to Naruto, and then they decide that because Naruto has poison in his hand, they'll have to go back to the village and end the mission. Naruto does not want this to happen, so he stabs himself with a kunai in the hand to release or get rid of the poison blood, and makes this grand speech about how he'll do better in the future, and this was a fluke, and, he's strong, and all the other things that one might say. Which then leads to them deciding to continue on with the mission, and when Kakashi goes to tend to his hand wound, it is found that the QB is already healing his wound, and in order to hide this, Kakashi wraps it with a bandage anyways. But that's basically what happens in the episode. There is a brief scene at the very end with Gato scolding Zabuza for sending the Demon Brothers and them failing to kill Tazuna. And Zabuza then basically makes a declaration that he himself will go in person and kill them all. But now that we have ranked this, or now that we've been reminded what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode. As always, we'll rank on the mostly objective ranking list first, followed by the personal ranking list. So we'll start with the positive points. We have +1 for the single arc supporting character introductions, and we have Gato, who is the mastermind, but gets very little screen time, so I'm still considering him supporting. And then the Demon Brothers in this episode, which were Gozu and Meizu, who again attacked the group as they were leaving the village. Then we have the single arc main character introductions, which are worth 2 points each. And we have Zabuza Momochi at the end, who is the demon of the hidden mist. And this is where he was being scolded by Gato for sending the demon brothers and the demon brothers failing. And then we have Tazuna, who is the client for this mission and the person that they are meant to be escorting and protecting. We then have our multi-arc main character growth, which is worth 4 points each. And we have, for the Genin, their first higher level mission, which is also their first mission out of the village and their first battle. So that is worth 4 points. And then we also have Naruto and Kurama's healing powers being revealed, in that Naruto is far more durable than the others, and that's also worth 4 points. We then have the world building pieces, which are also worth 4 points each. So we have the explanation of the missions being broken down into S, A, B, C, and D rank missions, and also how the shinobi ranks of, Hokage at the top, then Jonin, Chunin, and Genin correspond to the various missions, and which missions can be undertaken based on power, because ultimately the shinobi village is a business and the requests come in, they accept money for those quests, obviously, or not quests, but missions, and of course the higher rank the mission, the more money they're getting, therefore the higher and more skilled shinobi is assigned to those missions. And then as they are walking away from the village, Sakura asks why, someone from the land of waves would come all the way to the land of fire in order to hire shinobi. Don't they have their own villages? And this is when Kakashi explains how there are other ninja villages, and having a ninja village is a sign of military strength for that nation. However, only the 5 main nations or great nations have shinobi villages that have a leader that is a Kage, and that's basically the land of fire, wind, lightning, water, earth, I think it is. Oh, I could be misremembering it. And that each of them have a corresponding Kage, and it also goes through, names each of the villages and which land they belong in. Obviously, if you want to see all that, watch the episode. It's explained perfectly there. Anyways, we get a lot of info dumping that happens, but it is all important info dumping because it is world building info dumping. And then we have our negatives. So the first negative is -2 points, and that has to do with, so recently I had to undergo some safety training at my job, and it's very fresh in my mind now, but it put a heavy stress on how, like, everybody is responsible for identifying the hazards of a particular job and ensuring that the workers who are completing that job have all of the knowledge necessary to complete that job safely, and obviously any equipment or training, etc., that they would need in order to safely complete that job. And even if a job has hazards and risks and needs to be done anyways, every effort obviously should be put into place to minimize the loss of life and the potential for injury, etc., etc. So, obviously, withholding vital information like the fact that there are high level and skilled shinobi that are hunting you in order to pay less for the mission puts not only yourself in danger because you're not going to get somebody as skilled as you may need, but also puts the lower skilled workers or shinobi, in this case, at risk as well of death, dismemberment, disfigurement, injury, etc., because they're not of a skill level that is required. Now, luckily, because it is an anime, they will pull through. Spoilers, but in a reality situation, not likely to happen. Most likely they would have already been dead. And so, even though Kakashi is very skilled, luckily, he still put children at risk in this case, and Shinobi at risk just because he couldn't afford to pay for a higher level mission, even though he needed that higher level. And I just think that that's really bad behavior because, again, you're putting people's lives at risk, and even if they've signed on to put their lives at risk as part of their job, that doesn't mean unnecessary loss of life is acceptable, and in reality, probably would have been that. Luckily, again, it's an anime, so we don't have to worry about that. Main characters don't tend to pass on, so yay. Worked out, but still not a good thing. -2 points. And then I did take 4 points for the weak or dislikable supporting character, excluding characters meant to be disliked. In this case, Tazuna is not the villain character, therefore, in theory, he's not meant to be disliked. Therefore, I can take the points for him being so dislikable, at least in these first impressions. Over time, his character does develop. Spoilers again, but it does develop. But the first impression, obviously, he comes in the room. When they get the mission, he's drinking alcohol openly in the middle of the day and has the ruddy appearance that they give to anime characters when they are drunk, showing that he is in fact drunk. He's incredibly rude, immediately says, you know, poorly worded comments or mean-spirited comments towards Naruto. And then there's the fact that he lies about the mission, and even as they start on their journey, same thing, he continues to drink, he continues to be rude, and he obviously, until he's called out by the evidence of defeated demon brothers, he continues to lie. And then luckily Naruto decided that he wanted to continue with the mission and stabbed his own hand so the mission would continue, because otherwise he would have had to gone back to Konoha. They would have known that it needed to be a higher level mission. He wouldn't have been able to pay for it, and then he would have been SOL. So basically, do not like this character, at least in these first impressions. Think his behavior and his overall attitude is extremely negative, and that is why I did feel appropriate to take 4 points. However, it still leaves us with 16 points all told. And so that is a 10 out of 10 episode, at least objectively. And that brings our mostly objective ranking list so far to, in first, enter Uzumaki Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura, friends or foes. You failed Kakashi's final decision. This episode comes in fourth. A Dangerous Mission, Journey to the Land of Waves, and it is fourth place because on the mostly objective list, when more than one episode has the same score, it's ranked in episode order. Then we have My Name is Konohamaru, and in sixth place we have Pass or Fail, Survival Test. And now we come to my personal ranking for the episode, and I don't let my hatred of one specific character, and it's not really hatred because I know he develops into better later, fully impact the episode. What I liked about the episode, I liked the Tora mission because I thought it was adorable and kind of funny, especially when Naruto catches the cat and ends up scratched. And then has kind of like a moment of serves you right when the cat gets smothered by its owner. Um, I do like that even though it was a bit of an info dump and we had like two of them in here, I do like that they explained fully early on in the series about the villages and the missions and the ranks and everything like that because that's then information we can take going forward and we already have that base understanding so they don't have to spread out as much information in the future or any information that they do show in the future can be more like a quick refresher and not it doesn't have to take as much explanation and time. So I'm fine with the info dump in this case. You know, it's our first out of the village mission. It's the first real battle against enemy shinobi that we get, which I like. I also like how, on the one hand, like Sakura and Sasuke managed to overcome their fears. Naruto's the only one who doesn't after talking so big, so it's kind of like a humbling effect on him, but also an opportunity for him to grow, which he does take into account. But now we come to what I didn't necessarily like. I didn't like the big speech because, you know, it's dramatic, a little bit overly so. Also, he stabbed his hand, and it's lucky the QB exists for him because, I mean, like, if you didn't have the QB to heal that up, like, you're stabbing your hand, you could be hitting nerves, bone, permanent disability. You kind of rely on your hands as a ninja. Like, that's a really stupid thing to do. So I did think it was kind of overly dramatic, a little bit stupid, some secondhand embarrassment, which I do not like being embarrassed on other people's behalfs. And unfortunately, I can't help that. I am a sufferer of secondhand embarrassment. Um, and also, like, you know, I just think in general, if you talk big, you should have the capacity to back it up because it is really just embarrassing and pitiable when you talk big, can't back it up, and end up an utter failure, which is kind of what happened to Naruto in this episode. And I did, again, feel some secondhand embarrassment and pity towards him for that. I also like, so something I'm neutral about. Oh, I also didn't like how, Naruto essentially threw a tantrum and then the higher ups, i.e. well, not i.e., but the Hokage and Iruka basically gave in and then gave him a higher mission. And it's like he should have not been given a higher mission until he proved that he had earned it or until Kakashi decided the team was ready for it. He shouldn't have been rewarded for his tantrum, but that's a minor thing. Um, Neutral is Zabuza being scolded. It does do a job of introducing Gato, that he's the one paying to target Tazuna, and then it does introduce us to Zabuza ahead of fighting Zabuza, but also it was such a short, brief time at the end of the episode that I feel like they could have also had that be like the beginning of the next episode instead, and then it's a little more like I just feel like it would have been better in the start of the next episode, but that's something I'm neutral about. I'm not positive or negative to it. However, having said all that, I did decide to give this episode a score of 8 out of 10 because while it did have some flaws, it did have a lot of value and I liked more than I disliked. And again, it was our first real battle, which was exciting. And that then brings our arc ranking so far to this episode in first place, A Dangerous Mission, Journey to the Land of Waves, followed by My Name is Konohamaru, Pass or Fail, Survival Test, Enter Naruto Uzumaki, You failed Kakashi's final decision, and then in 6th place we have Sasuke and Sakura, friends or foe. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far. And for the prologue, the Land of Waves arc, it's currently sitting at 54 out of a possible 190. And then on the personal ranking, we have 41 out of a possible 190. But with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Naruto Prologue - Land of Waves arc, Episode 6, A Dangerous Mission, Journey to the Land of Waves. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.